Well, we're here to celebrate a great event, and who better to help celebrate it with? I want to introduce my co-host, who's one of the most respected and beloved people, not just at Select Sires, but in the entire AI industry, and that's my friend Dick Chichester. And Dick served as general manager here for 26 years and is one of the most recognized celebrities in the entire industry. And Dick, I appreciate you joining me here on stage. Today we're here to celebrate all of those people that are out there that went the extra mile. Those technicians who drove through snowstorms just to get another cow bred. Those employees who drove into Select Sires during a snowstorm just to feed these heifers. And for those like Elmer that stayed overnight to make sure they could feed him again the next day. Those are all the things of going above and beyond the call of duty that made this a great company. And so I'd like to take us just down a walk of memory lane about the history of Select Sires and the history of the AI industry. And that takes us all the way back to 1938, when a man by the name of Dr. Enos Perry, who's a professor at Rutgers University, brought back an idea from Denmark called artificial insemination with fresh semen, and started the first AI cooperative, the Cooperative for Artificial Breeding, Unit 1. I don't think Enos knew a lot about marketing, but in terms of naming his company, but that was established on March 28th, 1938 in Clinton, New Jersey. That was the first AI company in the United States. Now why is that important? The first calf was born in February of '39. Well, the first cooperative merged into what is now a part of Select Sire Power. So Select Sire Power is the oldest remaining AI company in the United States. And that was brought over through the Sire Power merger, but congratulations to the entire Select Sire Power family. But it's an example of the rich, deep history that we have here at Select Sires. And thanks to the support from Penn State University, if you haven't seen it, Dr. Enos Perry's microscope sets in the Heritage Center that we have here today, and I appreciate Cliff Marshall using a little bit of his political capital to sequester that. I hope they know it's here. No offense. So back in 1946, there were about 608 breeding associations that existed across the United States. 608. That doesn't include a couple of the private organizations that also existed. In 1950, Chris Polja, an English scientist, developed frozen semen, and in '55, Union Carbide developed the liquid nitrogen refrigerator, and the AI industry was born. The only thing we needed was progeny test, and Dr. Lush of Iowa State developed that introduced that in about the early '60s. So as you get the point, and I know Dick was figuring this, the cost of the breeding associations was rising. And I don't think the $45 or the $5 that the 45 dairymen that enrolled in the first AI co-op was going to cover much of that cost. So then, with these increasing costs, companies started cooperating. And there were 4, Central Ohio Breeders Association, or COBA, KABA out of Kentucky, and the Northern and Southern Illinois Breeders Associations, all decided to start swapping semen, and they came up with the idea that we should combine our research and production efforts and our money to develop progeny testing, and we worked together. And the idea on October of 1965 came to reality that Select Sires was born. In 1969, 6 additional co-ops joined. Cache Valley from Logan, Utah, MABC from Michigan, 3 co-ops that make up Southeastern Select Sires, that's East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, and Mid-South Animal Breeders, and then Virginia ABA. And it was being managed by a young manager named George Miller, who happens to be in the audience today, and I asked George, so in 1969, what was Select Sires like? What was the focus of what they were trying to accomplish? And just give us a little background about what it was like in 1969. George?
Thank you. We came together, as you mentioned, to assure that our members could get top genetics at a reasonable cost and a quality product. Jim Millinger was a fine and talented man but he never had a chance to really manage the total federation. Directors had him study this and study that, try to decide on a new home. He would make recommendations, but they seldom acted upon it. They said more analysis is needed. It seemed to me that his staff was less dedicated and competent than he was. Budgets were based on the member seaman purchase projections, but in reality they fell woefully short, which created monetary problems. But two very positive things took place during those early years. Jim Mellinger brought Howard Kilgren to select SARS from Louisiana to be the production manager. And second, the design and implementation of a young SAR sampling program was orchestrated by Dr. Kent Meadows, Dr. Jim White, two member managers and two from the SAR department here. On the other hand, there were a couple of negatives. Select SAR's produced semen quality was atrocious. They were using an experimental diluter that I understand was used to new members cooperatives experienced a drastic drop in non-return rates by using it. The promotion department farmed out the advertising program to an out-of-state, inept agency. And the SAR books had a number of very obvious errors. In summary, some of us were not happy campers.
Now, George, if I remember right, following Dr. Jim Nickel came from Virginia Tech, and Jim kind of got things really rolling in terms of identifying a place to build, but he also brought in some real talent to solve that. And one of the guys that he hired, but it took him a while because I guess he had to ask him 3 times and get a bunch of farmers to convince him to come, was a guy by the name of Dick Chichester. And I guess after the 3rd time of Dick saying no, he finally said yes, and the rest is history. And Dick started as general manager of Select Sires in 1973, and he's often told me that he says, thank God for Elevation, he built this place. So I'm asking Dick to tell you, what did Elevation contribute that allowed Select Sires to succeed in that early years?
Thank you, Dave. I've never used these things very much, but somebody told me one time if you treat them like a spittoon and hit them right in the middle, that's where they work the best. So, anyway, you know, we're here today and this year to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Select Sires, but we're also here to celebrate the year of the birth of Brown Oak Cragapple Elevation. He would have been a 50 today if he were still alive. And Elevation was born in Loudoun County, Virginia, on a place where George Miller and his family were there for years. Loudoun County is northern Virginia, right over the Potomac River from Maryland. But Elevation came into the organization as a young sire. George talked the sire committee into to seeing him. He didn't talk him into getting him. And he went to Rocky Mount, Virginia, and then later on he came up here. And when he got his first proof, it was about in 1970 or late 71, and he was housed with, this place wasn't built yet, it was down in Cova, in an old stall with cinder block siding. And in the summer of 1971, if you can believe this, Elevation, it was a hot summer, And all of the elevation semen got thrown away that summer. That's hard to believe that a bull like that had to discard his semen. So we said, well, somebody said air conditioning is what we need. So we went down there and we knocked out the side of the wall and put in one of these air conditioners in, and after 6 weeks started keeping elevation semen. And so that's the first thing he taught us, other than the genetics part, is bulls work better in air conditioning. And you notice this barn behind me is full of air conditioning now. And so elevation turned out to be a good semen producer. And I don't have to tell you what kind of daughters he produced, but he taught us something else. One day I was back in the lab in the collection area and so forth, and walked by and looked down the trash can, and there was a bunch of elevation straws that had been discarded. So I knew it was discarded because Cliff must not have liked the quality of it. And so Cliff's purpose, of course, rightly so, was to get bulls to keep the semen that had the best chances for high fertility. So I came up to George's office and told him, I said, there's a bunch of elevation semen back there in the trash can. And so George about came unglued, which he can do often. So we went back and had a little talk with Cliff. Well, Cliff, well, why'd you throw away that semen? Well, because it wasn't high enough quality. And George, I'll never forget what he said, are there any calves in it? And Cliff said, yeah, but not as many as you would like to have. So what we did that time, we came up with where this red top semen came from. And the semen a little bit below quality, we would send it out to the members and told the people who used it to pay for it based on if they got the cow pregnant. Well, surprisingly enough, it got several cows pregnant. And so then we started selling it at a discount, and so elevation taught us that were calves in that discarded semen. So then he went on to become one of the great sires, and I guess there's more genetics in the world, in Holstein cattle in the world today with his genes than any other. And so he also made the company more or less solvent, because for every straw he produced, there was at least 5 people wanted to buy it. And so you could sell it, and you could also sell it for a little premium amount. And so that helped the bottom line. I don't have to tell you that. And that made a rookie manager look a whole lot smarter than he was. So that's what happened with elevation, and it's a great thing that he came here. And then when he died, it was a sad day, of course. But then I had to leave because I didn't want to see him he was down. And all the vets from the Ohio State vet school were here, and they told me I had to put him down. And I said, okay, but I don't want to be here when that happens. So I left, and I told Howard, get a backhoe and dig a hole out here in front of the pond and bury him. And they said, you can't bury him out there. I said, what's the health department going to say? I said, I don't care if they care about it. Tell them to come and dig him up and get him out of here. I don't give a damn what they say. So he went out there, and he's still there. So that's the story of elevation.
Dick, during your tenure, it was written by, I think, Bernie in the first history book, that it was a time of cooperation, investment, and growth. Can you walk us through a few of the major decisions that was made by Select Sires in terms of that helped take us through those 15 years?
Well, everything you said, it did grow, and a lot of people had something to do with that. So when I became the manager in 73, first thing I need to do is bring in some people. The first one I went to was George Milton. He was a manager in Virginia. I knew him. And one thing I knew about him, I didn't know whether he'd be a great director of marketing, but I knew that he would tell me what he thought regardless of whether he agreed with it or not, and he did. And then I knew we had a bunch of good bulls, and we had some ratings with 4 stars for good udders and 3 stars not so good and that kind of stuff. And that's not exactly the most scientific way to run a breeding program, so I needed somebody who could help mate some of these cows to some of the better bulls, and he knew what he was doing. So I knew Ron Long. I'd seen him before. I knew he knew something about cattle and also got along well with people. So I met him at a restaurant down here, wrote out his job description on a napkin, and he came on to work. Now, I was just a temporary manager then. I hadn't accepted it because it looked like to me they had a full-time board of directors and moved managers around pretty often. And I didn't want to be one of them. By the way, now the last 44 years, Select Sires only had 2 managers. But anyway, that's how that worked. And then I had some good people to start with too. I had Howard Kelvin was here, and we had a good finance man, Don McKean. John Hecker was the sire analyst. So we had the right people then. And so that brought us some good bulls to follow elevation. And we just had one good bull after another. And that's going on today. And the reason for that, I think, is not only do our sire analysts today know where the good cows are, know what a good cow ought to be, but they have good rapport with people. And one time I asked somebody, we were leading it just a couple of years ago, we had top bulls on the genomic list, and I asked, how did we get that? Well, they said, your people know the people that have the bulls and get along with them. So that's what counts. So my philosophy the whole time was if you have good people will get good bulls, and good bulls will attract even more good people. And if you do that, the finance part will stand it to itself. I don't know anything about accounting, but I know you have to bring in more than you spend. And so, but if you have the right people and the right bulls, it works. So that's the way it was, Dave. Tell me a little bit, Dave, about the major transaction and focuses that have been going on since I left and you came on. By the way, I told when the board first asked me to be manager, I said, well, I'll take it for a while until you get somebody qualified. Well, it took them 28 years to find somebody qualified, and they did.
Well, Dick, as you described how you went into it, that was one of the really blessings that I had, was I went into a group of senior managers that all were very talented in their own areas. And when you got guys like Ron Long and Charlie Will running the bull program, and you got guys like Don Monkey running the production program, and Cliff, you couldn't tell him anything, but he'd do it his own way. But it was just, and then I had Shirley, who is the great planner and organizer, and she just made me, all these people just really made me look good. So it was pretty easy as you got started, but focusing really on genetics and fertility was where it's at. But it's interesting, the first time I walked into my office, you put me in that little corner office, because I got 4 months to practice. They put the cheapest, oldest computer they could find in there, and I think it was the IS way of trying to get more budget. And come to find out, it was what everybody had, but you had to unplug your phone to plug your computer in to get your email. But the first thing that happened was you gave me Dwayne Coots's number and said, give this guy a call. And probably one of the biggest things that gave us the horsepower to make this organization run for the next 10 years was the addition of sire power. Dwayne Coots was a very forward-looking manager because he saw where the future was, and he said we would be better together. And I always remember Charles Mullendick and I and Vic Williams going out to Sire Power, and we met with the Virginia, North Carolina, and the Sire Power folks, and we sat down, and everybody had their say, and Leroy Keck was sitting there. Charles Moyer probably remembers Leroy. Well, he said, let me tell you how it's really going to be. All right, Select's going to buy the property, you're going to merge in with us, and he got more done in 10 minutes than we got done the other 3 hours. But to tell you how good you're being led, Charles Mundick was president. I was sick several of those meetings, so I would sleep in the back seat while they drove, and I'd wake up every so often. The one time I woke up, I said, well, where are we? Charles said, I don't know, we're lost. And we were somewhere in Pennsylvania. We gotten off. And so, but despite our leadership, that was one of the major changes. And I think the other major change was production and quality control, really investigating fertility and investigating how we collect bulls and doing things differently, where, George, I hate to tell you this, but I'm pretty sure today Cliff could have got at least 180,000 units of elevation semen out of that bull, and he'd have made you look good. Because that's really what kind of made us look good. And then the things that we did in the whole fertility advisory, but I think the real strength of Select Sires and the real success, one is making sure you hire great people, but the other one is to have a committed board of directors that lead. And you had it back in the days when you were bringing East Central and the group on with Clarence Boyk and with Bill McGee and some of the great leaders back then. And I've had that same opportunity, and they set the direction and the focus for the organization. And then you hire talented people, and the board encourages you to treat those people well. And the secret to our success is our people. It's not Dick and I, it's all the other people, whether it's the people in the lab doing it right, it's the people in the barns taking care of the bulls, it's the, you know, this year it's hard to believe, but we made good first cut in hay because our people were committed to work nights and weekends to get it done. And it's those kind of commitments that to everybody, and it's the commitment of people to put the chairs up under the tent last night, take the chairs down this morning, put the matting down, put the tables and chairs back up, reset everything up, and then decide it was still too wet and move everything over here and not complain. That's what I think are the kind of examples that make Select Sires great. But the board recognized in 2008 that we need to improve inbreeding and we need to improve our ability with heat detection, so the investigation of all of those technologies brought us Aegis and SCR and our Cow Manager product from Aegis. It also brought us Stratagen and our ART program, but it's the continued push of the board of directors. And it's just really been a great run, but it's good people that continue to bring great bulls. So with that, I got to look back at our agenda. I think, Dick, the next one is yours.
Okay. One of the people I said I had brought on early, in addition to George, was Ron Long. And I told you why, because we had a bunch of good bulls and cattle out there needed breeding, and they needed somebody to get and consult with them and do that. And I had known Ron, and we met in some restaurant down here, and I hired him, and he stayed here for a long time, did a great job, started the SMS program. And I guess SMS is over 1 million cows, isn't it, Lon?
Yes, sir.
Something like that, and he started it all. So Ron, won't you tell us about that and some of the good bulls that were here during your time?
All right, thank you, Dick. I appreciate having the opportunity. One of the things about this, my contract written on a paper down there, I didn't realize you weren't legal to do that. I mean, so I guess I've been working all these years illegally because I wasn't part of the group. But anyway, another little short story talking about elevation and seeing Randy Blodgett back here taking pictures. And Randy's father was a classifier for the Holstein Association. And it was back around 71, 2, 3 when we were classifying, and we were doing it down in the Virginia area and whatever. And as classifiers do, after you get finished in the evening, you get around and have a Coca-Cola and have a steak and what other. So we got to talking, and Peter said, you know what, he said, I ran across some daughters of a pretty good bull down here in Virginia. I said, who was that? He said, his name was Elevation. I don't know, I guess it was Round Oak Rifle Elevation. And that's a true story. I mean, that's the first ones, I don't think I ever told George about that. So every time after that, George kind of let me know, you know, that, well, if you're going to be a classifier, do it right. Check those elevation daughters and do it right. So anyway, all right, we've talked about elevation as being one of the great bulls, and no question about that. I think it's documented by the Holstein Association that elevation goes back and is found in more pedigrees than any other bull in the country or in the world, for as that's concerned. And he's made a great improvement. And then we had some other bulls that followed right along. I think maybe you go a step ahead of that, and there was a bull called Fawn Matt. In fact, when I was home on the farm, I was on the Kobe Young Sire program, and we used Fawn Matt as a young sire, and I had 2 daughters in the herd, and these were great cows. We didn't have anything fancy or whatever. My parents just picked them up and got started in the business, but they really looked like Fawn Matt daughters, and they were great cows. So the next bull that come along, I think it was the Magic Cross on elevation, was Mark. He's the one that kind of fit the pattern. You know, the elevation had the good legs and feet, and Mark, that wasn't his strong point, but he had some stature and some dairiness and rib and so on and so forth. So I think Mark worked well, and then Black Star come along. And you'll find those all the way down through the pedigrees. And some of you may get the Holstein International magazine, and you'll see that. And what's interesting to me, they'll talk about some of the new cows and the new bulls that are coming along, and they highlight them. And they show the generations that go back 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8 generations. And I saw not long ago there was an elevation back there. I think it was in the Roxy family, or the one from Pinehurst up in that area. So it was back, I don't know, it was about 10 generations back there. But anyway, all these bulls were continually showing up. After Black Star, then we had, I may not have them in the right order, but in fact, I had to jot all these down. Dave told me I was going to be on the program when I arrived today, so I'm just now coming up with it. So anyway, then there was Elton that came along also, and then Mars Tony, and then the other sons like Emery, and then it was nice to throw some rotate in there every once in a while. And then, you know, it just was a nice combination, a sequence of bulls that were able to be, and those of you that study your genetics, it was a nice group of bulls to follow one after another and come up with the right kind. And then I think a bull maybe that didn't make that much of an effect as far as the sire side of it, but from the female side of it, there was, I think most of you breeders out here that have been, or dairymen that have had cows around for a while, have used Matthew. And well, the Ramseys are here too. Bill was somewhere, but anyway, I think Matthew was one of our real customer satisfaction bulls. I mean, people liked him. There wasn't anything fancy about him. There wasn't high indexing cows, high indexing sons, and so on and so forth, but just good, solid cows. And then we jumped into another different era, and that's a good thing about the Select program. They didn't focus just on one thing, net merit or milk production or whatever, but over the years they've used a combination of bulls, and one of those bulls was Durham. Durham come along, and people were beginning to say, well, I've seen some of these Durham daughters, they're pretty nice, and all of them were the result of a young sire program early on. So, and he's developed, and I think the rest of the story there is the All-American, the foundation cows, and what has gone on in the past, or in the past and the future. We're still talking about Durham's winning at the shows. And then I think the next 2 bulls are the ones that really just kind of sprung us back into the limelight in the succession of bulls, and that would be Oman and then Planet that you saw here today. You know, great bulls, a lot of daughters, didn't create a lot of excitement when the first Oman daughters were out there from a type standpoint or the way they look. But the longer they milked, the more generations they put under the belt, the better they were. And they gained a lot of popularity, and somehow our competing organization decided that wasn't a bad way to go either. And so there's a lot of Oman sons out there, and of course we got Planet. And then there's another bull that maybe doesn't fit into that same category, but again, it shows the diversification within the Select Sire lineup, is the Atwood bull. Now sure, he's not going to have a lot of high indexing cows, but for those families out there that want to have show cows for in 4-H, and show heifers in 4-H, or if you've got aspirations of going to Madison and winning there, or if you have aspirations in going somewhere in the foreign countries, Latin America, South America, or Europe, you can do it there too. So Atwood is, you know, if you think about bulls like Elevation and so on and so forth, but he's a real contributor to the breed. And you saw one of his sons, I believe, today. I was talking, wasn't paying much attention, Charlie, but anyway, I think you saw Braxton today, I think. But anyway, and then we'll step on to the next generation, and I'll finish, and we'll talk about Mogul, we'll talk about Super Sire, we'll talk about McCutcheon, and then King Boy might even be the next one after that. I've seen a lot of King Boy bull calves that are coming in to be sampled, and they're good. So just a little free plug there, Charlie. But anyway, so I appreciate having the opportunity. I more than appreciate having the opportunity to work for the Select Sire organization, and these are two great guys right here. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Ron. And I noticed as you were talking, I got the Jersey breeder sitting right in front of me. He was kind of giving me the look like, are you going to say anything about the Jersey breed? Well, and for those of you who follow the Jersey generation, you know, as you look at Sooner, and then you Highland Magic Duncan, and then you got Beretta, Centurion, and Jace, Action, and now Valentino. Select Sires has certainly cut a pretty wide swath of the Jersey breed. And as I'm saying that, I'm getting the evil eye from Randy Hill because I haven't said anything about Angus. And so if you think about the great bulls in the beef program like Shearbrooks has shown, and Big Sky, I bet you didn't think I remembered that far back, did you, Randy? And 6i6 Predestined. But I think in the beef program, you can't think of Select Sires and not think of Roy Wallace. And Roy was the sire analyst at the time that developed the program, but he was voted one of the 40 most influential people in the beef industry by Beef Magazine. And what he brought in terms of dollar value, be it reliable genetics, and he recruited and trained our leaders of our beef program today, and Brian and Aaron and Roy certainly had a major impact on this organization. So I want to make sure that we touch all the bases. But you know, we can talk about our history, we can talk about a lot of things that are about Select Sires, but one of the things about Select Sires is the family organization. And nothing really says that more than some of the examples sitting here. We got Charles Moyer, who served on our board for a couple of decades, and his son Larkin, that runs the herd now, been strong Select Sires reporter for years. And Pete DeGroot, his dad was on the All West board, and he was on Select's board, and now his sons are running the herd, and they're strong representatives. Mark Van Mersbergen's the president of All West, and his dad was on the All West board, and I'm guessing he probably was on Select's board at one point in time. And then we have the Casagrandes, and you got Dr. Casagrande, one of the most celebrated people from Brazil, and his son Casio now is running the company, and it's about being a family organization. And probably one of my favorite stories is one that Charles Mullendick tells, and so I'm going to turn the mic over to Charles Mullendick. Charles Mullendick was the president of Select Sires at the turn of the century, and Charles, you want to share with me your family story?
Little did I know that in 1980 I would be on the Select Sire board. Dick was the manager here, so that just shows you how it goes along. And then when Dick retired, I had to be president of Select at the time, and I got to call Dave Thorbon. He was at some bar up in Lake Erie, and trying to get him to tell him he got the job because I didn't want to call the other people until I talked to Dave. And finally, we ran him down, so everything kind of takes a full circle.
That is a true story. There's even more to that story that I could tell you later, but we got to keep moving. But one of the things we talk about our history, and it is pretty great. But I want to invite Dan Andrus, who's the first vice president of the board of Select Sires, and Dan is. I want to ask him how the board of directors is committed to the future of Select Sires. So I'll let Dan share that with you.
Thank you, Dave. I'm absolutely positively sure none of you came to hear me speak. And I'm fine with, except you, Tom, I'm sorry. My wife isn't even in that group. Dairymen, would you all please stand? Dairymen that purchased semen from Select Sires. and be recognized. Thank you. For, I think most of you realize you are the owners of Select Sires. By your purchases, your commitment, you own what we see today. The 50 years of progress that surrounds us is because of the dairyman's commitment to genetics and to Select Sires, and I thank you for that. Board members from Select Sires, would you please stand? I know there's a few, one of you left, a couple of you, thank you. I need to know where to go if I get things thrown at me, so maybe a couple friendly faces. People, favorite story of mine, true, unlike last night. I was a farm kid at Ohio State, got a scholarship, play basketball. I was walking through the arena one day. Legendary coach W.W. Woodrow Hayes was walking towards me. Of course, I recognized him immediately. He walked towards me, grabbed my shirt, pinned me up against the wall. I'm bigger than he was, but I stood there frozen. He said, if you ever think about playing football, come see, because you win with people. A few years later, he wrote a book, You Win with People. And today, everyone that has spoken has mentioned people. People is what Select Sires is all about. We as board of directors are elected to our positions, and it is our job as a board of directors to select people that have vision, commitment, and resources to continue the progress that we have witnessed today and this afternoon. The board is committed. Again, we're all dairymen. We understand things aren't the greatest. But every 4 times a year we meet, discuss, and lay the groundwork for Select Sires. We have a strategic planning committee currently laying the groundwork for the next big, better things for Select Sires. And Dick, if you think the last 50 years have been tremendous, the next 50, hang on, because I think we're really in for a lot of surprises, and I can't wait. I won't be there for all 50, but we're headed in the right direction. Commitment, dedication to you, the owners of Select Sires, is immeasurable, and we thank you for your attendance today. Back to you, Dave.
All right, we're good. We're golden again. I share Dan's enthusiasm about the future. I think our brightest years are ahead of us. I think the talent that we are surrounding ourselves with, the people that we have out there, it is a very exciting time to be at Select Sires. And when I have, we have people, scientists like Dr. Matt Utt, who are creating some new and interesting things, and I see what I saw yesterday from the Sire team, and guys like Rick Verbeek, I'm very bullish about the future. I'm very confident that you have the right board members leading us forward. But as I look at, we have a great past, a lot of great memories, and even a few of those memories we probably can't even share with you today, but we are excited about the future. We're excited about where sex semen and these new technologies are going to take us. And our board is focused to make sure we get there. Now, I'd like to do a few house cleaning details. The red cups that are on the table are there for you as our guests. Everybody should make sure they have one, both employees and guests. Let's let the employees get theirs first, but we'll make sure everybody gets a glass to celebrate this occasion. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you for caring enough and taking time to come out of your busy schedule to join us. Because at the end of the day, it's about all of us. It's about our customers, it's about our board members, it's about our employees. All of you have had a contribution to make this, make us successful. And it means a great deal to me to work with the finest group of professionals that I could ever think to work with in the Select Sire staff that I have here. And I want to again thank all of them for what they did in making today possible. Let's just give all of them a round of applause for what they did. And in closing, a few years ago, Shirley Kaltenbach identified a saying that I think would go, George, all the way back to 1965. It's called, "Your success, our passion." And the reason I'm so excited about the future is that we have a bunch of passionate people who love this industry and who love the part about breeding dairy and beef cattle that are going to be successful into the future. And those kind of people are what are going to make select sires continue to shine. With that, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I'd like to thank all of the Select Sires employees for what they do. And I'm going to give this over. The bus tours. First, we got a bus that leaves at 1:30 that goes back to the hotel if anybody needs to get back early. If you're staying for the bus tours, the rest of the bus tours will go over to Darby Creek if you didn't go over in the morning, or you go with your groups either on the tour of the lab facilities or the presentations that will be available in the Kellgren Center. So again, thank you everybody. It's been a great afternoon, and God has blessed us with holding off the rain. Thank you very much.